Oh, hello, everyone. Can you even believe it's already February? It seems wild to me. I feel like January just flew by in an instant. So this month we're working on really the power of how we work with ourselves, the power of how we talk to ourselves. That is the vibe of February is really, Valentine's Day, self-love, all of that. So today what we are working on is the power of being your own cheerleader. So, without further ado, let's just get into it. So the other day I was talking to one of my clients and she was just nitpicking herself about something. So in her business, she's in sales. She wanted to make, let's say, a certain amount of money. I forget exactly how much it was, and she did almost all of that. And then she not only didn't celebrate the success that she had, which was like a best month ever, but she was so fixated on what she didn't do that she brought it up in coaching, right? And I was like, man, you had your best month ever. Like, you have great momentum. You have a full pipeline. So sometimes things just don't hit with the exact moment that you want them to. Like, sometimes that's just the way life goes, and there's, that's fine. And so it was an interesting topic to me, which was so juicy because then I saw that same thing in myself like 2 days later, which is like an interesting thing about being a coach is like sometimes the exact things that you say to your clients are the things that you need to hear for yourself. And so I'll tell you that story in a minute. But when little girls are conditioned, right? Most of us are conditioned to not brag, to not boast, to not show off, right? So one of the major differences in how boys and girls are conditioned when they're small is that girls are usually celebrated for like who they are, right? Like, oh, Mary's so sweet, or Jane is so beautiful, or their qualities on the person, right? Where little boys are more celebrated for what they can do. So little boys he runs so fast, he learns so quickly, he does these and these things. And this is going to be really unconscious, but if you look around, you'll see it. How we talk about small children, how we talk about boys and girls is a little bit different. And what this generally means, because nobody likes somebody too full of themselves, right? I'm like trying to figure out the exact way to put it, but it's like there's a difference between a beautiful confidence and an arrogance, right? And so a lot of times when little girls are celebrating, gives them that, well, don't show off, you don't need to tell everybody how smart you are, like XYZ. So a lot of times little girls are discouraged from celebrating themselves, and what that turns into is a hypercritical self view. And when I talk to clients about this, the way that I usually talk about it is, we have two eyes. And I imagine that, this is obviously not like biologically true, but bear with me, that one of our eyes sees everything that's wrong with us. I call it the eye of critique, right? It's the eye that shows us the places you could do this a little better. You could be different about this, right? And then the other eye is the eye of magnificence. Now, if you were conditioned to never brag, to never boast, every time you saw your own magnificence, somebody energetically took a bite out of you. And this is, this all sounds a little drama. And most of the time it's really subtle, right? So a lot of times our parents aren't like, well, I'm going to damage this kid's confidence, make her second guess herself. It's just like, oh, sweetheart, we don't boast like that. You know what I mean? Like, these kinds of things. And so this is like a pattern I kind of see. So it's like men have this eye of magnificence where they can see themselves in their magnificence. And a lot of times women only really see or talk about the things to critique. Right. And at least in my life growing up, I feel like women really got together and did a lot of critiquing marriages, critiquing each other, critiquing outfits. Right. And so a lot of times when women are met with other people, there's a lot of criticism. Like the other day, I was in line at the grocery store and I noticed that the cover of People magazine is still talking about Oprah's weight. This fucking woman is 71 years old. And I'm like, people are talking about her weight. And I'm like, how boring is this? I'm like, we've been talking about Oprah's weight since like 1984. And she's still on she was on the cover of magazine with the caption about Oprah's weight loss. And I was like, ugh, right? And so this poor fucking woman has never been able to just be good enough. They're still critiquing her on the cover of magazines at 71. And that stuff is so subtle. Like we're just so used to it that we don't even think about it, right? So anyways, when I'm working with clients, most of the time we play this game. And so I'll teach it to you guys. So just imagine one of your eyes is your eye of critique and the other eye is the eye of magnificence. And every time you talked about your magnificence, somebody kind of punched you in the eye a little bit, at least energetically. So one of your eyes, you're not used to showing off. One of your eyes, it doesn't usually get to see the light of day. And so the other one is a little extra big and it's a little extra robust because it's doing all the work. So I just want you to imagine looking at cover one of your eyes, right? And if you're driving, wait till later, but cover one of your eyes and just imagine looking at yourself kind of with the question of what's wrong with me, right? And you'll see the things. And then cover that eye that you just, we're looking through that lens and just say, what's magnificent about me? What's wonderful? What am I exceptional at? Right. And you'll start to see all of these things. And there's something subconscious that happens when you make your eyes symbolic and then you cover one. So you can start to see your own magnificence. Women self-celebration. I read a book, Unbound, A Woman's Guide to Power, Cassia Urban. I hope I said her name right. I admire the shit out of that lady. It says that women's self-celebration is like enough to break the patriarchy. And I think it's true. And where I'm going with this is because a lot of the patriarchal are like the policies and the systems have started to crumble quite a bit, but there's so much internalized misogyny and so much internalized patriarchy that women's attention is constantly like preening their own selves, like picking at their own feathers, like bothering themselves, critiquing themselves, worried about things that men don't have to worry about, like wrinkles, right? Like men just get to age. Women spend a lot of time, a lot of energy into trying to not look old, right? Like it's just so interesting. The vast majority of women don't ever really celebrate their wins. Now, when we only focus on what's not good enough, we start to feel not good enough, right? So if I'm drawing all my attention to what I don't think is good enough, I'm going to feel not good enough. This costs so much money. This costs us promotions. This costs us clients. This costs business, right? And it's because when you don't radiate your full confidence, how could anybody else feel confident that you're going to be ready to lead a team or take over, some aspect of whatever they were going to hire you for, right? And then women have this whole extra layer of stuff that we call imposter syndrome. And when I talk to somebody who's like, I've got imposter syndrome, what I really see is that her competence is sky high and her confidence is in the gutter. And that gap is so big that when she's in her competence and she doesn't even have, like, her confidence is so low that when she's in her competence, it doesn't even feel like her, right? That's like really what's happening. That's the way that I observe it. I'm sure that, other people have different opinions on that. But that when somebody says that to me, and most of that comes from every time something happens, every time she does something good, she's comparing it to this imaginary thing. So in the book, what is it? 10x is easier than 2x. There's a chapter called The Gap in the Gain. I think in that book, the authors do a really good job of explaining this. But it's like, so let's say I want 100, right? I want to make 100 grand. I want to do whatever. And let's say I do 90. If I'm focused on the 10 that I didn't get, I'm going to feel bad. I'm going to feel not good enough. And there's always going to be a gap because as we grow and expand, there's always something new to get. And if you are constantly hitting all your goals at 100%, like that's boring. Like you're probably not growing. You're probably in your mastery, right? So if we're focused on that little bit that we didn't get, then we will never allow ourselves to feel our success. We will get in our own way. We will bother ourselves. We will critique ourselves. We'll take a bite out of ourselves. We'll diminish ourselves. We'll say, oh yeah, I did that. I did that amazing thing, but I did that awesome thing, but still wasn't good enough. I made the most amazing cheesecake, but, right? And that erosion of confidence will cost you millions over your lifetime. So let's talk about some ways to start to shift that dialogue. So the first thing that I would love for you to do is set an intention with your own self to feel successful today. And what that's going to sound like is you just getting quiet for a second and you telling yourself, I intend to feel successful today. And that's it. That's literally it. That's all you have to do is I intend to do this. And you have to mean it, but that's the intention, right? And so then you let your brain do its work. You set the intention, you directed your mind on purpose. Then what I want you to do is you can go back and look at some of your accomplishments through this lens of success and celebrate them. Mention it to somebody. Talk about it. You could do that. Like, it's okay. It's okay to talk about it. And then anytime that you notice yourself diminishing yourself, when you hear that, oh, I did this awesome thing, but just notice that you gave yourself credit and then immediately took that credit away. And it's not about judging yourself because then we're rewiring the pattern that we're trying to unwire, right? Like, so don't shit talk yourself because that's not helpful. But if you notice yourself doing it, just notice it. And in your mind or to the person, depending on who you're talking to, just re-say the sentence. Oh, I had my best month ever. Not, oh, I had my best month ever, but I still didn't get to my goal. Right? Like when, like with those words, it's like one adds a point, one takes a point away. And then from there, you can literally just observing the way that you talk to yourself, just starting to notice, wow, I take a bite out of myself kind of a lot. Or other ways we self-diminish, right? You want to look at that. If you've been following my show for a while, I'm sure that I have an episode on law of increase, law of decrease. And the way that I really imagine this is the quality of energy that you put on yourself or put out to other people is either, I call it increase, it's the law of increase, or it's the law of decrease. So that quality of energy is either adding to someone or taking away from someone. So if I acknowledge you, if I appreciate you, if I express gratitude for you, if I praise you, if I was, worship seems like a really weird strong way to talk about a person, but if I was to worship, right, those are different varying degrees of increase, right? Like worship is obviously energetically different than acknowledgement. So acknowledgement might be like 1 point, appreciation might be 3 points, worship might be 10 points, right? But you can start to see that quality of energy you're adding to something, right? And so we love to be appreciated because then somebody else gives us a little boost, right? Now, decrease is going to be the non-acknowledgement, the disregard, diminishment, criticism, complaining, degradation, right? These are varying degrees of decrease, right? Like not acknowledging that somebody did something is definitely not as negative points as degrading them, right? Like, or disrespect, right? That's pretty high up there. And so if we think about this as law of increase, law of decrease, the quality of energy that you put on yourselves is either adding to you or it's taking away. So if I said, oh, I had my best month ever, but I still didn't meet that goal, that's like kind of neutral. Like it's like I gave myself a point for acknowledging my best month ever, but then I degraded it by saying that, but I still wasn't good enough. Right. So where I'm going with this is that amount of internal points, I was calling it points, but what I'm talking about here, this internal energy, this is going to be the basis for, and I'm talking about on an energetic level, but it's like everything is energy before it manifests. And so a lot of times people want to receive more money. They want to receive more money. They come to see me. They're like, I want to 10x my business. I want, and I'm like, all right, awesome. Great. Let's do it. And then I'll see that her capacity to receive, I'm like, you want to receive an 8-figure, you want to receive enough money to have an 8-figure business. You want a multi 7-figure personal salary, and you can't take a compliment. You can't receive a compliment and you think you're getting multiple 7 figures. We have to stretch that capacity, right? And most of the time that capacity is just diminished by the constant literal self-disrespect, self-degradation, self-diminishment. Like that's literally what happens. And it all comes back to this earlier childhood conditioning where if you learn it well enough, it's like you won't even brag inside your own mind. You won't even boast inside your own mind, in your own privacy. So these are just some things that I really want you to take in and to think about, because I want you to celebrate yourself. I want you to have everything you ever wanted and to feel good, right? Like I want you to feel successful. Like you've worked for it. You deserve that. Like you deserve to feel good. You deserve to see yourself as magnificent. And the more you see yourself as magnificent, the more the universe will see you as magnificent, the more you'll be magnificent. And that's the way that it goes. Let me tell you a really, really quick story. So I once had a client who came to see me. She felt really underappreciated. She felt underappreciated at work. She felt underappreciated at home. She felt underappreciated in her family. And so when I saw that, I was like, well, do you ever appreciate yourself? And she was like, what would you even be talking about? And so for a period of about a month, she put in every day a self-appreciation practice where every day she would appreciate herself. Every day she would acknowledge her accomplishments. Every day she would just bring her attention to her magnificence. And I want to point out that this was deeply uncomfortable for this woman. And so this was not an easy assignment for her to shift her focus, because she was so used to criticizing herself that a lot of times when we did this kind of work together, she was a private client of mine. She would cry. She would cry as she acknowledged herself. And it wasn't really sadness. It was just all this energy moving. It was just like sometimes you see yourself differently and you're like, I am that amazing, And it was emotional for her. And with this practice, it took maybe 2 weeks before her boss started giving her better projects. She didn't get like a promotion, but she started to get projects that were better that were better for her, that she liked better, like the more fun kinds of projects, which to her was a really big win. Her lover gave her an enormous gift. Now, what I found out after the fact is that that lover had been trying to give her that gift for a while, and she couldn't see it or receive it until she was able to do it, like until she had enough appreciation for herself to be able to receive it, right? Her mother's like really gave like really heartfelt like thank you, like gave her gratitude for what she'd been doing, right, in the family. So there was a lot of just little shifts that added up where the appreciation that she wanted, once she had that appreciation for herself, it came her way, right? So this is why this matters, because it's like, we want money, but it's like, well, it's really hard to make and hold a lot of money if you're constantly taking a bite out of yourself. And even if you get it, it's still gonna feel like failure, right? Like that's like that, and that's a pretty common thing. Sometimes I work with people making so much money, but it all still feels bad. So like, what's the point? All right, so I told you I would share with you my one little story, and then we will wrap up. So after I talked to when I first started the episode, I was telling you I was working with a client. She had her best month ever. And she was talking about the game. So last year I offered something called, I offered a $10,000 offer, right? And I made the offer on a webinar, and I ran that webinar for a few months. So over the period of maybe like it might've been a little bit longer. It might've been 2 months, 10 weeks. I closed $10,000 sales off of a 1-hour training. All right. Now, a couple people, I had a brief conversation with, a quick little sales call, but I wasn't taking like big sales calls. I'm talking like people sent me a WhatsApp message and I answered them, and then they bought the thing. Right. And you might not be familiar with the online space, but in the online space, people will tell you that it's literally impossible to sell a $10,000 thing off of a webinar. It's pretty common. I've had a couple mentors being like, hey, you're probably really going to need a sales team for this. But I was like, I really don't want a sales team. I had a sales guy before, or I have had a sales team before, and it was fine, but it's expensive. It adds a lot of drama to my business. I was like, I want to be able to sell stuff the way that I sell it, right? I want to point out, I'm not new to sales, right? I've been in this business. I was a stockbroker before I got into this business. So I've been selling, really since 2013. And since then I've done, I don't even know how many sales calls, but the other day I was looking at my books, and I can tell you that I've closed more than $2 million in sales with my own mouth. High ticket sales, right? So I was really wanting to make $100,000 in 1 month. And it took me 2 months, or maybe 2.5, I don't know the exact date, to make 80,000. And I literally didn't celebrate it. It didn't even cross my mind that it was worth really like celebrating that as a huge success. And it was just funny because when the client was talking to me, I was like, oh yeah, all right. And then it just hit me like a day later, and I'm like, oh, I did the same thing. So anyways, I've been intending all week to just feel as successful as I am, because that's when you feel successful, you just radiate different. And this is work. We all have to, these are little shifts. I call it work, but it's like not really work. It's just like, man, I want to feel as awesome as I am today. like that's kind of it. So that's my hope for you. So listen, next week we have a special guest. One of my dear friends is coming on, and we're really talking about diet culture and body stuff, because that is another huge area where women do a lot of diminishment. They put a lot of time, a lot of energy, a lot of things into, and a lot of it backfires, right? And so anyways, she's a great guest. She's a good friend of mine. So anyways, make sure that you're here next week. Bye everybody. I love you.